Welcome, everybody, to TCPalm's ongoing coverage of the August 18th primary election. This is going to be the editorial board meeting to interview candidates for the Martin County Property Appraiser's position. My name is Gil Smart. I'm a columnist here with TCPalm, and I'm joined today by fellow editorial board member Larry Reisman. I will lead the questioning of our two candidates here this afternoon, and then we're going to open it up to Larry's questions if he has any at the end. Kelly Rogers is directing the video coverage, and if we get any questions from our social media audience, we might decide to pose one or two of them at the end of the session. I want to thank our candidates today, Jenny Fields and Kelly Glass-Layton, for streamlining this process by completing questionnaires ahead of time. The board members have reviewed them, and you can find them on tcpalm.com/elections, along with other stories, videos, and information about the August 18th election. At the conclusion of this interview, the editorial board will discuss possibly writing an editorial to recommend a candidate in this race. We've got several questions today, and we might end up having more of a conversation than a simple Q&A. Our goal is to be completed in 45 minutes to an hour. Because of the time constraints, we ask the candidates keep their answers concise and be respectful of others. We'll go in alphabetical order here, I guess, which means we will start with Ms. Fields. Many of our audience members aren't as familiar with candidates for property appraiser as they might be with other candidates like county commissioner. Tell us a little bit about your background and what qualifies you for this office.
Thank you, and thank you to the editorial board for this. I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I know it's going to help me as I watch your other interviews to go to the polls. Like my background, my name is Jenny Fields. I was born and raised right here in Stuart, Florida. I went to Martin County High School, graduated in 1988. When I was 19 years old, I started in the office, the Martin County Property Appraiser's office, where I have spent the last 31 years working in every aspect of the office. And currently I serve as Laurel's second in command. I earned that position through accumulating an in-depth knowledge of every aspect. And that means there's 12 divisions, there's 12 areas of responsibilities, and I know them all, I've worked with them all, and I'm ready to go.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Thank you for that, Jenny. Kelly, let's go to you. Tell us a little bit about your background. What qualifies you for this office?
Thank you, Gil. Yes, I was also born and raised here in Martin County. I graduated from Martin County High School. I left Martin County to attend University of Tennessee, where I had a full athletic scholarship, graduated from there, and then moved home back in 2004. In 2011, I was elected to the Stuart City Commission. I've been on the commission since then. I've been the mayor twice. And in 2013, when Carolyn Timman was was elected into office as our clerk of court, she brought me with her as a part of her leadership team. And I'm running for this position to bring a greater transparency, more accountability, and a track record of proven leadership to the Martin County Property Appraiser's office. It's been operating for decades under the same person, and it's time for new leadership and enhanced service. But there's an attempt underway to treat this office as though its management should be determined by some kind of internal succession plan, and that's not how it works. Our constitutional officers are elected by the citizens to ensure representation, ensure accessibility, and accountability. In organizations, especially government organizations, they're always vulnerable to the same thinking and the same mindset of this is how we've always done it. And when it happens in government agencies, the citizens suffer the most.
Okay, thanks. Let's stick with Kelly here for this next question. As you just mentioned, whomever wins this election would succeed Laurel Kelly, who was first elected in 1992, 28 years ago. Obviously, those are some pretty big shoes to fill. But what do you think specifically needs to be improved about the way the property appraiser's office is run?
So specifically, right off the bat, I would say the technology. Specifically, excuse me, I'll just be frank. The website, it's antiquated. I don't know if any of you have ever been on the Palm Beach property appraiser's website. You simply enter in the individual's last name, and all this information pops up. There really isn't a reason why our site can't be that user-friendly. Also, there isn't any real-time communication coming out of that office. As I mentioned, I work at the clerk of court's office. Public records, I know when deeds get filed. I know when mortgages get recorded. There really shouldn't be a reason that it takes weeks, sometimes a month, from the time a mortgage or a deed gets recorded to when it appears on the property appraiser's website. People shouldn't have to waste time and energy looking for these things. This should be in real time. And in addition to bringing the website out of the dark ages, I'd also like to see an app-based program. Just because a website is accessible on a mobile, that doesn't mean that it's an actual app. At the city of Stuart, we looked into a parking app, and I thought it was a great idea. Because in the reality in today's world, most people have mobile devices, and they're usually in arm's reach at all times. Again, this office should be the epicenter of government. And if we want it to be the epicenter of government, we have to prepare for the future. And having real-time communication, a mobile app, and a much larger social media presence, that's really the way to go.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Jenny, let's go to you on this. You've worked in the property appraiser's office for a while. How are things going there? Could things be improved?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Laurel has, anyone who's dealt with our office in the last 28 years, we are not a stagnant office. We are always looking for opportunities to streamline things. The website was launched 2 years ago. That's a brand new website. The part my opponent is speaking about is the back end, which is the sales search, and the property summary page, which is set to go live in the next month. So I look forward to everyone's feedback on that. It's going to have a whole new sale. It's going to link to permits. It's going to link to the taxes. It's going to be interactive with the map, and we're really excited about to launch that. As I said earlier in a prior interview, the social media platform, that's going to be huge. I'd like to broaden that. I would like to do a virtual lunch and learns. I want to have how-to videos available on the website. So yeah, I mean, we're always looking and moving forward and looking to broaden. Our website is mobile friendly. We've put out free standard reports that are, nobody has to ask for a report. It's out there. You can do interactive mapping. You can bring in sales layers and see the sales on the maps. You can see zoning. You can see, so we're proud of our website that we launched. We're really excited about the new one coming out. And then when we go live in November with our CAMA software conversion, that's going to provide even more tools and that could be available on the website. So we have a lot we're looking forward to.
Okay, thanks. Let's stay with Jenny for this next question. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing the property appraiser in the coming years?
Immediately, it's going to be COVID. Right now, COVID has affected everyone. Our values for next year, 2021, is going to be based on the 2020 market. And that means we have to study everything now. We've implemented processes where in our income and expense statements that go out to commercial businesses, we have questionnaires about COVID. What did it do to their vacancy rates? How did it help how did it hurt their rental rates? We're gathering all that information now so that when we're ready to do the values for 2021, we're going to be able to reflect that and see what kind of a hit it took. So just looking at that next year, that's going to be the immediate priority, is looking at the market for every use, especially commercial properties.
Okay, good. Thank you. Kelly, what do you think is the biggest issue facing the office in the coming near future?
Thank you for that. Before I answer that question, I just want to go back to one thing that my opponent has said. She mentioned all these great things that are happening with the website. My question is, why is it taking so long? I find that it's ironic that we are in the middle of a campaign for a new leadership coming in that office, and all of a sudden the website is going to have all these new and great improvements. As I mentioned, 30 years in the same position, and in the last 9 months to a year, all of a sudden, all these brand new, exciting enhancements are coming to the website. Now, back onto the question that you did ask me, I 100% agree. COVID is going to have several articles pointing to the employment that effect is going to be. But at the end of the day, the market is going to dictate what the values are, and we're just going to have to wait to see what the market does.
Okay, thanks. Well, let's stick with Kelly and we'll stick with this topic too. Obviously, yeah, COVID-19 is going to have an impact both on property values, how the office works. What other things do you expect will have a big impact on local property values in the next few years? How about Virgin Trains, for example, formerly known as Brightline? Are there other things out there that are going to have an impact on property values that people ought to be aware of?
Yes, it's ironic that you mentioned Virgin Trains because that's something that I fought against tooth and nail. The simple fact that the train coming through downtown Stewart is significantly going to hurt the downtown area. It's going to hurt our economy, and most importantly, it's going to hurt public safety. You look at where the tracks are, the railroad tracks. They separate the downtown area, so you have ambulances that are coming from the west side of the tracks, and now they're going to have to try to. Well, there's just going to be a lag time in order for them to get over the track. So absolutely, Virgin Trains is going to impact our property values. I think certainly east of the railroad tracks, and also our river. I have been a strong advocate for our river, and the potential discharges if we have another toxic algae breakout this summer or next summer. That impacted our property values in 2016. It certainly will impact our property values going forward.
Okay, good. Thank you. Jenny, how about you? What issues or what's coming down the pike that could have a big impact on property values in Martin County?
Absolutely. A couple of years ago, when the whole Virgin Trains first came out, we were the first office who actually did the study to look at how it was affecting the market. And it was absolutely diminished depreciation, and we adjusted all the values for that. We did a study on how far out the houses or the properties were from the railroad tracks. So if you were within 200 feet, it might be a 5%, and so on the farther you got out. So, once that actually does start, though, that was always talk. And so we recognize for that diminished appreciation. However, when it actually happens, I think that's when you're really going to see the dip in the market, and it could make a big difference. Again, with the algae, that comes and goes. A lot of times, when you're people that are here and they're buying and selling property, they can be more tolerant of the algae because they know it's going to come and go. But the people that are out of town, they come and they see that, and it does affect sales. With regard to the COVID and the economic concerns that's going on, I think people are limited. They're worried. They're having to reevaluate their own income and making decisions. I think it causes listings to be delayed, and people are fearful. So when we're looking at the future market, you might not have as many sales. You might not have many people building, and that could cause the price to go up because the inventory is so low. So with all of those concerns that that are worrying people today, I think that can also affect the market in the future.
Okay, thank you. We'll stick with Jenny for this question. Do you think the property appraiser's office has been effective at public outreach, at letting people know what the property appraiser does and the reasoning behind why, say, their property is valued where it is? Would you simply continue the current approach, or would you try something different? And if so, what would it be?
I think we've actually done a great job, but there's always room for improvement. I trained in process improvement and continuous improvement, so I know that that's the case. But we get out in the community and we're talking to people 12 to 15 times a year. We have the realtors and the board of realtors come into the office, and we do training for them so that they know what's going on. We send out a supplement to the property owners to let them know, what is the trim notice? What does that mean to them? When they have, when there's an area with significant increases or decreases, we send letters. We explain that to them. When somebody has bought a property and we want them to know about homestead, we send them a new homeowner card. It lets them know all about that, what portability is. So yeah, I mean, we've we've done a lot to make sure that the public is informed of who we are and how we can benefit them, but there's always room for improvement. And like I said in the beginning, social media, our buyers right now, our market is the younger market. And so it's targeting them. It's making sure you're not leaving anyone behind. And so my goal is the social media platform. It's the virtual tours, because not everybody wants to come into your office. So we're going to have those, the county just moved us into that beautiful facility. We have a wonderful training room, and just have different topics, invite people in on the computer, kind of like what we're doing now, and teach them, walk them through the website, teach them about portability, about tangible personal property, about agricultural, and we'll pick a topic and do that all the time to make it easier so people that can come into the office can just do it right online.
Okay, thanks. Kelly, public outreach.
So I've been talking to a lot of people just on a daily basis, and I can tell you the majority of the people don't have any idea what the property appraiser does. Just this morning we were on a call, and the call had to actually, the moderator, the person that was doing the interview, actually had to describe to the people what the property appraiser does. So yes, I would say there's plenty of room for improvement on a community outreach. Okay,
good. Thanks. This is a question we've been asking a lot of our candidates. It goes to the issue of ethics. And we'll start with you, Kelly. Tell us about a time in your life when you faced an ethical dilemma and how you resolved it.
Oh boy, I could tell you I could pull it right out of the back of my brain. When the community when I was a city commissioner at the city steward, when the community was calling for our mayor to resign, that was a highly ethical situation. We had, I guess I could talk about which mayor, right? We had several in the last couple years. I'll focus on the latter one. We had it was during our city manager interview process, a formal complaint. HR was complaint because one of the city commissioners said something that was highly inappropriate and highly ethical. A human resources investigation was done, and we had to determine to remove that mayor from office. That was a huge ethical issue that we just recently faced just a few years ago.
Okay, great. Jenny, how about you? A time that you faced an ethical dilemma and how you resolved it.
An ethical dilemma. Well, I would say right now I'm actually facing one that's questioning my ethics. One being a complaint that was filed by my opponent went down to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement about an email that she received where I was corresponding with a local tax accountant who emailed me on behalf of a client. In this day and age with COVID, a lot of our businesses, they didn't file their tax return on time. We've been granting exemptions. We sent out 1,600 reminder letters June 16th. Since then, in the last 3 weeks, we've granted almost 200 exemptions. But what I'm facing right now is the fact that this complaint was filed against me as if I accepted a bribe. So how I'm handling it is, I'm going to keep my head above water, and I'm going to, anyone can call the office and know that's always been our policy. And I'm going to just keep plowing forward.
Okay. Next question, and then I'm going to open it to Larry because I believe he has a couple pretty good questions here. And we'll stick with Jenny on this one. Why should voters vote for you as opposed to your opponent? Why should they, ostensibly you represent continuity in this race. Why should voters vote for that instead of going for your opponent?
That's a great question. At the end of the day, Laurel Kelly has served 7 terms. We have a reputation for being an outstanding office. We provide outstanding customer service. She has laid a foundation that has, that culture lives and breathes in our office today. I want people to vote for me because I was a 19-year-old kid, okay? And when I started here, I never thought for 1 second that I was going to be sitting here following this dream I had for so long. And here I am today. But I want them to believe in me and know that I'm qualified, because unlike my opponent, I have worked from the ground up. And if anyone has ever done that, they'll know they are personally invested in the success of this office. I have real world education, 3 decades of hurricanes, algae blooms, age of internet, going from valuations on pen and paper. I went through all of that with Laurel. And I'm proud of what we've accomplished. I have a lot of goals moving forward. But at the end of the day, you're not going to go to a doctor if they don't have a medical license. You're not going to elect a sheriff that's never been in law enforcement. You have to have someone that knows what they're doing. Otherwise, you're going to elect somebody to come into the office and 43 employees are going to have to teach that person what they do. You need a leader who knows what they're doing, who's been hands-on with them, who knows all the DOR requirements, the statutory guidelines, knows what challenges they face, and can help lead this whole group of truly great professionals towards the common goal, which is fair appraisals and providing outstanding customer service. And that's what I want to continue to provide.
Okay, thanks. Kelly, you represent change in this race. Why do we need change?
So that's exactly correct. I represent change and she represents the status quo. We need change because in order for any organization, including a government organization, to grow, to prosper, to new leadership has to come in. I've also done all those things. I've dealt with the community on multiple levels, from a simple fence permit to, as I mentioned, a community calling for a mayor to resign. Why is that important? It's important because the explanation of services that the taxpayer expects with a positive outcome is something that I am the only candidate in this race have experience with. Now, I know that they have an open door policy, but the city also had an open door policy. I also had an open door policy at the city. I was always representing the taxpayer. It could be a Saturday afternoon and I could see somebody at Publix and they're going to talk to me about a sewer or a septic issue they just had, or a baseball game at my son's baseball game, and 15 people wanted to talk to me about the sale of Sailfish Park. More importantly, that contact and my appearance or my availability to the public and the use of my private cell phone for them to contact me to get their issue resolved, that experience doesn't come from working under somebody for 31 years. You don't get that experience unless it's your name on the door.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open this up to Larry now because I know Larry does have a question or two here. Why don't you jump in, Larry?
Thanks, Gil. First question for Kelly, I guess. The Save Our Homes Amendment will be 30 years old in 2022. Can you talk about the positive and negative effects it has had on the Property Appraiser's office and on Florida in general?
Absolutely. So I only see positive aspects of the Save Our Homes amendment that passed. And I can speak specifically to the values in the city of Stuart and all of those taxpayer citizens that are living on a fixed income. And they really benefit from that exemption that they are receiving. So I don't see any negatives of it. I only see positives of it. And I think that it's on the ballot again, and I do believe that it's going to get that it. I mean, I believe in passing it.
Thanks, Kelly. Jenny?
Well, there's a couple things, Larry, what you just said. You mentioned the Save Our Homes. The Save Our Homes is actually not on the ballot. That's the portability that they want to extend to 3 years. But I look at the Save Our Homes benefit as two things. Number one, absolutely, it helps the residents of Martin County. Okay. They're capped at 3%. At most, no matter what the market does, their value is not going to go up any higher than 3%. And that's the consumer price index, whichever's lower. And that works for them. And I think it helps. But on the other side of the coin, I can understand why you have business owners who feel they take the brunt of it because they're only capped at 10%, which is the non-homestead assessment cap. Likewise, when you have your taxing authorities, which I would have thought my opponent was familiar with, when you have taxing authorities that you have a budget and you have all your tax base that's capped at these 10% and 3%, say, you know, the benefit, the assessment limitations, it really puts a strain on them too, because they can't see, they don't get the benefit of when the market values are going up, 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 because all these values that are homesteaded and non-homestead, if you're commercial, they're capped every year. So it's actually on both sides. I can understand the argument.
Thanks, Jenny. We'll start with you on this question, which sort of relates.
Can I
Sure, go ahead,
reference that
Kelly.
real quick?
Sure.
You know, she brought up a point that you, of course, I'm familiar with it. I have firsthand experience in a multi-million-dollar budget. I am very familiar with the taxing authorities. I'm very familiar that the property appraiser, that's the starting point from where we get our tax rate. So yes, that is something that I am very familiar with. Just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. Let me start with Jenny on this question, relates to the last one. So Jenny, who do you think is more responsible for increasing taxes? The property appraiser or taxing authorities such as the city and county commission? And why?
Well, this is how it works. The Martin County Property Appraiser has no jurisdiction over taxes whatsoever. We provide the tax base. That's the taxable value that is going to be used against the rate that is set by all the taxing authorities. So it's very clear we do not have any control of the increase in taxes. As a matter of fact, we might not change the values at all. You might have a, let's say, for example, and I'm not saying this has happened historically, but let's say, for example, we reported a taxable value increase of 1%. The taxing authorities are the one who set that based on their budgets. They based on their budgets, they would set the rate, and they could absolutely set a higher rate, and you'd see a higher taxes, even though your value went down. So it's definitely not in the property appraiser's office. That's the value. Excuse me.
Kelly, how would you answer?
She's absolutely
Kelly?
100%. Yes, she is 100% accurate. And I'd like to add to that as a city commissioner, the commissioners, the policymakers are the ones that have the ability to increase the tax rate, the millage rate. And I just wanted to add, in my entirety at the city of Stuart, I never once voted to raise taxes.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. We'll start with you on this question.
Larry, can I ask a question on that?
Okay.
What was the fire assessment? What was the fire assessment tax in Stuart? Wasn't that a raise of all the Stuart taxes? I know they implemented a fire assessment.
That was not an increase in our millage rate.
Well, it was a increase in taxes. I just wanted to correct that. Go ahead.
Kelly, did you want to address that?
It was not an increase in the tax rate. It was a fire assessment. It was a fire assessment fee. It was not an increase in the tax rate. It did not increase the millage rate. That what she said is not accurate.
Okay. Let me ask you a question, Kelly. Just when you said you never voted to raise taxes, did you ever vote? Did you hit rollback rate every year, or were you above rollback rate?
In the very beginning, I think we may potentially have been above rollback rate, but towards the end of my tenure, yeah, we were at rollback rate every year.
Okay, thank you. I think Kelly's next to go first with this question, but can you please explain the concept of portability? What are its pros and cons to the community?
Sure. So the concept of portability, I'll put it in a simple term, is somebody buys a house for $250,000 15 years ago. And in this market, they can sell it for $600,000. They are now going to go buy another $600,000 house. And what portability does is it allows them to port some of that value over to them when they buy their existing home. In a market, for example, like we're in right now, portability is very important. It's a fair process for people that have lived in their homes to be able to afford a newer home by taking some of what the equity that they've had in their home and port it over to their new home.
Thank you. Jenny?
Yes. Portability. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Portability is great, which is why it's on the ballot this year. They want to extend it to 3 years. It gives people more leeway. 2 years is not long to go move, buy a house, move in. So that's why it is on the ballot to extend it 3 years. And there's two things I would like to clarify on portability. I think it is so important that people understand this. When you look at your trim notice that you're going to get next month, at the bottom where it says Save Our Homes, and you see that dollar amount, that is the benefit that you get to take to your new home. And in the first year, you have your market value. Okay, then your market and you're assessed. Well, that portability Save Our Homes comes off the market. So you're actually going to have much lower taxes. That's the downside on the, like when you have taxing authorities that need to generate revenue, because what's happening is they already had an exemption, right? And they were already capped from year to year, so they weren't seeing the increase in the market. Well, what happens is with the portability is now what used to be before the portability, when you would sell a home, that was the opportunity for the assessed value to come back up and meet your market value, so they would recoup those taxes. Well, now what's happening with portability is people are moving, they're taking it with you, and that comes off their first year. So you never really get that full benefit back from the cap that they've had for years and years. And it's also important to remember too, if you're going to downsize, you don't get to keep that entire portability, that entire Save Our Homes benefit. So if you're looking at the market value of your current home and the market value of the house you're going to buy, if you're downsizing, you don't get that full amount. It's a formula. You get a portion of it. So it's just important to remember that as well.
Thank you. Gil, if you don't have any other questions, maybe each candidate, I guess starting with Jenny, could sort of summarize if there's anything else we missed, any other issues you'd like to bring up. Jenny could start.
Absolutely. Thank you again for this opportunity. When I started, like I said, when I started this job 31 years ago, I never thought for 1 second I would be in this opportunity that I'm so blessed to be in right now. People say that I feel like I'm entitled to this, or this is a succession planning. This is not. I'm running this race just like my opponent, and I wish her the best. I'm sure she's done amazing things as a commissioner. In my race, you will never see a negative word from me. That's not how I am. That's not the leader I am. I'm just asking for support because I am one of these people who have worked from the ground up. I am personally invested in this office. This position is not an administrative role. It's highly technical, it's challenging, and it's complicated. We have to understand constitutional amendments. We have to know that if an owner stops it's on the street, I can answer that question. I can help them. I can give them the knowledge when they get their trim notice, what this all means. How did we establish their value? That's what I bring to the table. 3 decades of real world, hands-on knowledge. I hope at the end of the day that, that's important to people in our community, because anybody could step in and be the face of an office, but that's not the way I learned from Laurel. I am a hands-on, dedicated, work with my group, let them know that I'm there for them. I know what they're going through. I know their job. I know what they're required to do. And that's why for me, I'm qualified, I'm certified, and I can start tomorrow. I don't need training. And I know my staff believes in me, and we have a great team of professionals, and I just want to continue doing that and giving the customers the outstanding customer service they deserve and expect.
Thanks, Jenny. Kelly?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, TCPalm, and thank you, Jenny, for allowing this. One thing that I just wanted to touch on that I did not get the opportunity to touch on earlier, because she certainly has worked at the property appraiser's office for 31 years. And she has worked in every nook and cranny, as she likes to say, which is good. But what I want to also talk about is, the reason that I'm running is to bring not only for the technical aspect to increase the technology, but also the accuracy and transparency and the accountability in the office. And we spoke about this morning in our interview. First off, the property appraiser's office, in my role with the city, I've personally witnessed very costly errors. The first one was $1 million. The property appraiser's office, they failed to apply the CRA taxation code to the harborage of condos. It went undiscovered for 10 years, even though they underwent audits and reviews for 10 years. In 8 of those years, the property appraiser office, they used what is called the GIS system. At the same time, another GIS system fail occurred, and this was with a private gas line company based out of Texas. This one was the tune of $500,000. So we have $1 million failure at the expense of the taxpayers, and we have a $500,000 failure at the expense of the private residents. Now, both of these errors, they were at a very bitter dispute that TCPalm covered between the county and the city. And it basically resulted in the pre-litigation between the county and the city. And I bring this up because it's important, it's relevant. That pre-litigation was called a 164 hearing. In a 164 hearing, it produced all the public documents that recovered and talked about all of these errors coming out of the property appraiser's office. And when I'm bringing it back up, because when I mentioned it in our meeting this morning, my opponent deflected and said, I'm bashing Laurel Kelly. How could I, shame on me for bashing Laurel Kelly and her stellar service, 30 years of service. This isn't about Laurel Kelly. This is about my opponent and her technical experience and her experience interpreting and reading constitutional statutes, state statutes. That's what this is about. In my time at the city, in just 8 years, these huge $1.5 million errors were discovered. In addition to other errors, just the other day, I received this flyer. I don't know if you guys can see it. It was an absolute auction flyer by Elliott Paul. I hope you can see this right here. This was a house that was auctioned into the Oaks. If you look at this flyer right there, you can see the square footage says 2,949 square feet, right? When you go to the property appraiser's website, it says the square footage is 2,126 square feet. This is just another example of oversight coming out of that office. Elliott Paul had to fully disclose before that action started that there was an error coming from the property appraiser's website. He had to fully disclose that in front of all the people before the property auction started. These are all things that come out of someone being in office for 30 years. And that's exactly why I'm running, to bring a fresh perspective to that office, a fresh set of eyes to that office.
Okay. Jenny, do you want to rebut that at all?
Sure. As I said this morning, the CRA error actually was not $1 million. It was, the coding error was a human error. And it was when Laurel put me in charge of the process improvement, she asked me to review all the tax roll processes to determine why our downtime was so low. I reviewed the processes. I discovered the coding error on the CRA parcels. I immediately brought it to Laurel. She took accountability. She called the city and the county. And for the next several months, we worked with both municipalities to resolve it. Then we put steps in place to fix it, and then implemented all kinds of processes to make sure that never happens again. And it has not in 8 years. And that's the type of leader Laurel is. And that's what she's taught me to be. You're not going to have an office that's free of mistakes. But it's not the mistakes, it's the problem. Mistakes happen, or that's part of success. That means you're doing something. And that's what she's taught me. I'm the one who found that. I'm the one who rectified it, and I'm the one who made sure it never happened again. That's the type of person that I am. That's why you want me there. If you have somebody there that doesn't know anything, how would you even know what question to ask? But regardless, mistakes happen, and that's not, to focus on that. If you think a leader is going to come in and not have mistakes when you have humans doing your work for you, that's just unrealistic. But it's how you deal with them. You're accountable, which Laurel was. She held herself accountable. She made sure she fixed it, and we made sure that never happened again. That's the best that anyone could ask for a leader.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask about the mistake on the 2 CRAs when the property appraiser had an East Stewart CRA? Just to
Kelly,
be clear, there's only 1 CRA in the city
no,
of Stewart.
No,
Again,
unfortunately, they're not, Kelly. According to the statutes, we have to use the date of the resolution for a CRA. That's how we have to use that with their base year. Those 2 CRAs were established at different times, so there are 2 different CRAs. You look at it as one whole one, but that is not how we have to report it.
So you thought it was okay to reduce the taxes being paid to one taxing authority to another? That was okay?
I don't know what you're talking about. That's why I didn't address it this morning.
Okay. All right. Well, our time here is running a little bit short, so we're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank both candidates for being here, for answering our questions. A reminder to our viewers that if you want to check out, if you didn't catch the whole interview here today, you can go to our social media pages, Facebook and such, and find it there. You can watch it from the beginning. You can also find it on tcpalm.com/elections, your one-stop shop for all things election rated on the Treasure Coast this year for the August 18th primary and beyond. I'm columnist Gil Smart. I want to thank Larry Reisman for being here. I want to thank our 2 candidates, Jenny Fields and Kelly Glass-Layton, for being here as well. Good luck to both of you, and we'll see you all again soon.